Welcome to the Nanny Podcast. I'm Hannah Scher, the owner of Riviera Nannies, a worldwide nanny agency based in the south of France. I feel very passionately about everything nanny. One of the most important things we do at our agency is making sure our nannies have the careers and jobs that fit them the best, and we love supporting them in all areas of their lives and careers. That's why I wanted to start the Nanny Podcast. Here we talk about all things nanny, the good, the bad, and the awesome. Thank you for spending some time with me today and for listening to our podcast. Welcome to the Nanny Podcast. My name is Hannah Scher from Riviera Nannies. I'm your host today, and I'm so happy that you're here. This week, we're going to talk about some of the differences between having a nanny and sending your kid to daycare as childcare options. This is, I suppose, geared towards families making the choice, but it can also be really helpful for nannies, both as a perspective, but to have a leg to stand on when negotiating and talking to a new family. Let's jump right in. The first thing that we should talk about is the big elephant in the room, cost. Having a nanny for your child is most likely going to cost you a lot more than if they were in daycare, but not always. Depending on how many hours you need, it's going to make more or less of a difference, but in general, a nanny is more expensive than daycare. The second big question for me as a parent is how much your kid is going to be sick when they're little. There are many variables here. But in general, a child in daycare is sick a lot more than one that's with a nanny. But of course, if you're lucky enough to find a daycare where parents don't bring their kids when they're sick and they follow good hygiene guidelines, then they might not be as sick as with a nanny who's not well versed in hygiene and illness prevention. But again, generally, for the first year or so, a kid in daycare is sick a lot more than one with a nanny, which might even end up costing you a lot more in lost work time. So a lot of the money saved by putting your child in daycare might be lost in sick days, where you either miss work or have to get, wait for it, a nanny. A third point is getting your child socialized, able to make friends, share toys, and function in a group, which happens organically in most daycares. But on the other hand, when you have a great nanny, he or she will be taking part in playgroups, meet with other kids, learn basic social skills, including good manners, and interacting with others. So in this case, I think it's more a question of having a great nanny with an intentional routine versus how it happens kind of on its own in daycare. Making friends is closely related to socialization when your kids will make friends from an early age. Again, this happens more organically in daycare, but with some organizing, you can do the same things with the same kids every week, like music or dance lessons, for example, or swimming lessons. It's not really the same as spending all day together, though. So if this is a really important thing for you, daycare has the advantage. The last point that I'm going to go over is attention. Your child is going to get more personalized attention with a nanny. And this has both advantages and disadvantages, depending on your point of view. And again, with a skilled and experienced nanny, it will never be an issue. I know kids who have grown up without siblings and with a nanny who are perfectly well adjusted and don't have any of the possible issues anyone who thinks too much attention can create. A great nanny will meet your kids' needs in a way no daycare really can. So what do I think you should do? I think it really depends on your situation and your values. Ideally, I think being with a full-time carer for the first few years of life is beneficial. You have less stress, slower pace, more focus, and attention. Then going into school goes seamlessly. And if being part of the daycare community where you live is important to you, then that's what you should do. I come from a culture where people put their kids in daycare at age 1. I would personally not make that choice, and I didn't make that choice, but it seems to work for lots of people. Even though they do complain a lot of how sick their kids are all the time. So there is that part too. So nannies, when you're talking to families, these are all points you can bring up and discuss with them to figure out their needs and how you can help them. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. If you like the show, please remember to subscribe and to rate us. If you want to connect with me on social media, I'm at Riviera Nannies on most platforms. This week's episode is brought to you by Mama Toto Radio, a brand new podcast where we talk motherhood, amazing mothers around the world tell their stories of motherhood and everything around it. You don't want to miss it. Next week, we're going to be talking about what a governess is. So that's going to be exciting. See you then. Bye.